Day 7 of 365 was important because the first week needed a real checkpoint instead of another new concept. Big O, time complexity, space complexity, loop analysis, common classes, and input constraints are all useful individually, but they only start compounding when I practice them under light pressure. The useful shift today was treating review as a pressure test instead of a summary. I wanted to know whether the first 6 days had actually changed how I read simple problems. The first big lesson was that review days should expose weak spots, not just feel productive. It is easy to read notes, agree with solutions, and walk away feeling prepared. That is not the same thing as owning the material. A real review day should force quick judgments. What complexity class am I looking at? What operation dominates? What input size matters? And which approach is already dead because of scale? Another useful shift was how effective short code snippets are for training instinct. A tiny function is enough to practice the exact skill I need in interviews. One loop, nested loop, recursion, extra memory, or a suspicious data copy all become easier to spot when I see them across many small examples. Review day becomes much more efficient when I use repeated short reps instead of waiting for one large problem to cover everything poorly. That also changed how I thought about problem count. A few honest basic problems are better than a long rushed list. The first week concepts should already show up in beginner-level questions. If I cannot apply growth rate thinking, memory awareness, and constraint filtering to simple problems, then I do not really understand them yet. That is exactly what review day should reveal before harder topics pile on top. Another big lesson was that notes are only useful when they capture the reasoning mistake, not just the final answer. Did I confuse consecutive loops with nested loops? Did I ignore the call stack and recursion? Did I miss that the input size made my chosen approach unrealistic? Those are the mistakes worth saving. A notebook full of solved answers is less valuable than a short list of repeated reasoning errors I can actively train against. That made the review day much more honest. The goal was not to prove that I spent time. The goal was to identify where the complexity instinct is still slow or unreliable. If I still hesitate on basic snippet analysis, that is useful information. If I still miss the effect of constraints, that is useful information too. Review only works when it produces feedback instead of comfort. Another useful shift was that pressure can stay light and still be valuable. I do not need a full interview simulation every time. A timer on a small snippet, a quick explanation of the dominant operation, and a short note on what I got wrong can already do a lot of work. That kind of repetition is sustainable, and that matters because review has to keep happening all year long. This also matters outside interview prep. In real engineering work, fast code reading and quick complexity judgment save time constantly. I may not be solving whiteboard problems in production, but I am still reading loops, recursion, data copying, and constraint-like limits in code paths. Practice day is one of the easiest ways to sharpen that review muscle without waiting for a big incident to expose the weakness. Another thing Day 7 clarified was what a good week-end checkpoint looks like. It is not a motivational post. It is a test of whether the week changed my instincts. Can I classify simple code faster? Do I reject weak approaches earlier? Am I more precise when I explain why a solution is acceptable? Those are the signals that matter much more than how long the study session lasted. So my main takeaway from Day 7 was that review should become a feedback loop for reasoning quality. Analyze short snippets quickly, solve a few basic problems honestly, and write down why the wrong instinct showed up. If that becomes the weekly habit, then the challenge compounds instead of just accumulating notes. That is what made today useful. Week 1 finally became something I could test, not just remember.